What is with these Christians? I dare say many have asked that question, whether out of curiosity or frustration. All too often, Christians can be loudmouthed, rude, and unloving. But there are many Christians who are not, even when they're sharing the gospel with people. But all too often, that activity is seen, interpreted as bigoted and judgmental and close minded. So, what's the deal with these Christians and their belief called Christianity? There are some people who are curious, and there are some people who are frustrated. And I invite both of those groups of people to listen so that you can understand a bit more about this Christianity thing. You might find yourself maybe a bit less frustrated. Maybe you find some of your curiosity appeased. You may still have more questions, but I'm appealing to your sense of fair play. If you want, of course, somebody to listen to what your viewpoint is, it's always a good idea to listen to their viewpoint as well. And so I invite you to come and listen to what someone who calls himself a Christian can say that might help you understand this thing a little bit more. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about evangelism and what we think we're doing as Christians, which may bear very little resemblance to what you think we're doing. Why is there a difference in perspective? We could start out with that question. The differences come from a very different viewpoint on humanity itself. Christians and non Christians see human beings from a very different perspective. Most non Christians think of human beings as basically good people, especially themselves. Christians, however, see especially themselves, but also the whole world, as basically bad. And the Christian viewpoint does not originate in their own minds. It couldn't. Um, Apart from God revealing himself on this question, nobody would think that humanity is basically bad. This viewpoint comes from the Bible. Now, of course, a lot of non Christians, on hearing that, will simply snort and say, well, why would anyone believe that pack of myths? We'll get to the Bible in another video, but for now, just for the sake of understanding a bit more about Christianity, understand that our viewpoint on humanity comes especially from Genesis, first book of the Bible, chapters 1 through 3, and then the New Testament letter from Paul to the Romans, chapters 1 to 3. So if you want a more clear perspective on what Christians think about humanity, those two passages are a great place to go. Christians believe that all human beings are rebels against God. And that, of course, is not a popular thing to say, and it is offensive to many people. But Christians believe that it's the truth. And here's an analogy that might help understand. What would you think of a doctor that has just diagnosed you as having terminal cancer, but won't tell you what that diagnosis is? Wouldn't you think that that doctor has a wrong idea about what it means to be a doctor? Or consider another example. Someone is about to run off a cliff and doesn't see that they're doing so, but someone else, a bystander, does see, but says nothing. Would you conclude that the bystander loves or hates the person who's about to walk off the cliff? Now, of course, that still doesn't solve the problem that unbelievers have with Christian evangelism. Non-Christians will often say they don't want religion shoved down their throats. And I understand that mentality. The Christian message is offensive to non-Christians. I'll just come out and say it. The non-believer doesn't want to hear that he or she is perishing, let alone that they can't see that they're perishing. And they will often come to the conclusion that when a Christian says that, they're implying a claim to be a know-it-all, and they're claiming pride on the part of the Christian. Oh, look, the Christian sees something that the non-Christian doesn't. And it's certainly possible for a Christian to be saying that from pride if they think that they got their knowledge from themselves and not from outside themselves. But what if that knowledge comes from outside the Christian? and did not originate with a Christian, then wouldn't he or she be obligated to tell others about that danger? And that's actually what Christians believe that they're doing. It may still not be what you think they're doing, but what Christians believe they're doing is not only telling people about the danger, but also telling them how to escape that danger. See, it doesn't just end with the condemnation. The good news that Christians are trying to share is not primarily focused on the condemnation. That's necessary to understand what salvation is and how great that salvation is. But it's that good news of escape that Christians want to tell other people about. So let's go back to the doctor analogy and just tweak it a little bit. Suppose the doctor caught your cancer in time with a diagnosis and tells you how to avoid dying from this cancer. And then you start the treatments and you wind up going into remission and you're cancer free. Wouldn't you believe at that point that the doctor had your best interests at heart? Well, certainly he would have your interests more at heart than if he didn't tell you about the diagnosis but decided to keep it from you. Meanwhile, your cancer spreads, and then by the time you find out about it, really, it's too late. If a doctor knew that and didn't tell you in time to correct it and put you through the treatments, that would be tantamount to murder, wouldn't it? The Christian, though, is in the same boat that the non-Christian's in this sense. Apart from God's work in Jesus Christ, all are under condemnation, Christian, non-Christian, and so what it's more like from our perspective is one beggar telling another beggar, hey, I know where you can get some food. I know where you can escape this cycle. You know, I got a tip for you. So we don't claim then to have any insights that come from inside ourselves. All of the insights that Christians have come from outside us, and they come primarily from the Bible, and they come from God helping us to understand what's in that Bible. But that's all originating outside of ourselves. We wouldn't have any knowledge of that in and of ourselves. We would still be rebels. We would still be unseeing. The only reason we can see is if God makes us see. So I hope this can maybe help you understand a little bit more about what evangelism is. Next video, we're going to talk about what the gospel actually is and what it's not and what it covers. So I hope you found this helpful, and tune in for next time.